Parents, train your children. Do you believe that a life in Jehovah's service is the best career choice our children could make?
Hi, I'm Lady C. In the upcoming interview, I'll be speaking with Amanda, and she'll be sharing some of her life experiences growing up as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. This interview is basically going to be held in a two-part scenario. This interview will be Amanda just talking about her life, and that'll be part one. And then part two, she'll be discussing her life situation with JT. So we invite you to tune in to the part one and part two segment dealing with Amanda. Thank you so much. I'm Lady C.
You're listening to The Critical Thought, where we challenge our listeners to use critical thinking when examining the teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Hi, this is Lady C. Thanks for tuning in to The Critical Thought. I want to thank Amanda, our upcoming guest, for taking the opportunity to come on our program to tell her story. Amanda, welcome to The Critical Thought.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here.
Now, Amanda, in speaking with you in our earlier conversation, you said that you were baptized at age 14 and you are currently being shunned by your parents. So tell our listening audience how your family came to be involved with the Jehovah's Witnesses.
My father was raised AME in Western Pennsylvania. My mother was introduced to the organization as a child through my grandmother, fell away from it for a long time, but then was reintroduced as an adult as she was looking for a happy family life, which is what she always told us, that because she came from a dysfunctional family, she wanted a happy family life. And then when my parents got married and had me and my sister, that's when they started searching for that life, that type of hope. And the Jehovah's Witnesses were at the door, and they bit. They fished, and they bit.
So your mom and dad both become Jehovah's Witnesses, so now what is it like now for you and your sister?
Our life as witnesses, for my sister and I, was very sheltered. That's the best word I can use to describe our youth, extremely sheltered. We didn't have a lot of friends, and we weren't allowed to because my mother didn't approve of anybody else. She felt the scripture about bad association spoils useful habits. My mother used that as almost like a weapon with us, a threat to us, because she believed that even in the organization, young people were not along the lines that she felt Jehovah's Witness young people should be. So we didn't have any friends. We grew up very sheltered. My parents were our friends, more or less, as children.
And what kind of relationship did you and your sister have?
Growing up, my sister and I were never close, unfortunately, and to this day still are not close, even as, middle-aged adults. My sister always had a need for attention. She always wanted attention. I was the opposite. I was more so the alpha female child, the independent one, the, perfectionist. My sister was more the artsy one. We were like night and day, basically. And my parents knew that there was problems there and unfortunately fed into it, in that whatever my sister did in order to get attention was always excused by them with scriptures, how I needed to turn the other cheek, how I needed to be the bigger person, how I needed to forgive less so that less I can be forgiven. Her behavior was always excused where mine was not. I was always to be the Christian model and do as much as I could and be the example for her and for all the other young people in the hall, which as a child is a heavy weight to bear when you don't even know yourself at that point. Yet you're being given these rules to follow, and you kind of lose your childhood in the organization.
That's true. That's very true.
You're forced to be an adult child, because that's the best way to word it. You're an adult child in the organization, which to some degree I get, and to some degree it's helped me be more mature at this age now. And even as a teenager, I believe I was more mature, but in comparison to some of those that I went to school with. But unfortunately, it drove a wedge between my sister and I.
As you got older, what did you discover about yourself in school?
From middle school up, when they actually start testing you for gifted and honors, they actually start separating kids. It's not just the group mentality. It's now you're kind of getting separated into your core curriculum, is when I was identified as gifted honors. And so all of my classes from middle school all the way up till I graduated in high school were either gifted honors or advanced placement. I'll say when I was in my last years of high school, that's when they put me in the advanced placement classes. So that's when I was actually earning college credits in high school, which meant that I graduated with college credits. It's one thing to have people tell you that you're smart, and it's one thing to get good grades. It's a whole other thing when you actually believe it. And that's like somebody telling you that you're pretty your whole life, and you hear it every day, but it's a different level when you feel it and you believe it. And so in school, once I finally felt like I was smart and I believed that I was smart, believing that I could do more than just get a high school diploma and be a witness the rest of my life. Like I really felt and believed that I could do more and I should do more, and that I was not going to waste my life from that point forward. At some point, my parents would always take time out to remind me that school was a necessary evil, that the public school system, up until, which is in the United States up until 12th grade, is only to be able to support yourself as a pioneer or in the organization, to get a job that you're able to support yourself, and that the ultimate goal was to further theocratic work, not secular work. In my mind, I carried that for a long time, thinking that was all I was worth, that was all I was going to do, until I got to high school and had some excellent teachers who became more friends than educators. So they knew what I was dealing with. They knew my father because he was a teacher in the school district. They knew that he had taken this stance against me going to college, but they were an integral part in me being able to make a decision to go to school. Because had it not been for them, I really wouldn't have understood as a young woman what I could do with myself, that I could go further in life. By being smart was only going to get you so far. You still had to have that piece of paper. You still had to have that degree. And that they more or less mentored me, despite literally having a school teacher that was at home as my father. The teachers in school mentored me further than my own father did in deciding that I needed to get a college education. The best way that I can express how hypocritical things are in the organization is again having a father who was college educated from a Pennsylvania university. He was actually one of their top football players. He's in their Hall of Fame, mind you, for sports, and was a teacher in this area for 35 plus years, and would go and assist his own students. Once they were in high school, he would, as an alumni of this college that he went to, he would actually take them and assist them with signing their college letters and getting into certain schools. Yet, once he got home, his own daughter, who academically excelled, he would do the opposite and encourage me not to go to school and not to be independent and not to become a smart and independent individual. So all because the faith, the Jehovah's Witness faith, was 10 times more important for his child than it was for these kids that he was pushing in the public school system to get educations and to go to college. So I guess in his mind, being a Jehovah's Witness was 10 times more important than being smart and being able to take care of yourself in the future.
These points that you're bringing up right now are very good because your dad being college educated, and I didn't even know he was in the Hall of Fame and all that for
he's
football.
In the Football Hall of Fame. He's signed up. He's had 3 kids from this school district here who were friends of his, that their fathers were friends of his, that he's gotten signed in his college, in his alma mater. And I mean, he will literally go and take them on college tours. He's donated money to the school. They honor him like every couple of years. He's one of their true alumni. Yet his own child was not allowed to go to a 4-year school. It wasn't appropriate. All because we were Jehovah's Witnesses. We don't do that.
That is crazy.
So it's good enough for everyone else but his own family. Basically.
That is so crazy.
Everyone else can be smart but my kids. Not my kids. Once I made the decision in my own mind that I wanted to get a college education, and I had made my appointment with my guidance counselors and my teachers, and I had narrowed down to the curriculum I wanted to follow, the degree I wanted to get, and the school I wanted to go to, I approached my parents about that decision. And they were less than thrilled. My father sat me down, and my father told me that if I decided to go away to a four-year school, that not only was he not going to support me anymore, but he was not going to pay for my schooling, and that if I did go away, that once I graduated, I would not have a home to come back to.
Honey, and so when you look at that and you examine it and you do critical thinking, it just doesn't add up.
It's sad and it hurts. Sometimes it makes me, which is sad to even admit as an adult now, it makes me angry. Like, how is it that you literally confront these other kids and help these other children, yet your own child is crying for an education and you're threatening to disown her if she goes away to school? That scared the living daylights out of me. To have my own father at 18, I've never done anything in my life. I've never lived independently of my folks. To have my own father tell me that he was going to disown me if I went to school and then I would not have a home to come back, would not be welcome in their home, and once I graduated, was devastating, mentally devastating. It made me think long and hard whether this was the route that I wanted to take. And sadly, I basically gave him my power and decided to do a 2-year school first instead, because then I was able to stay at home and, live the JW life, still pioneer, still work, but still get an education to some degree.
So did you finally get your degree?
I did. I finally got my degree, but it took me a long time.
We interrupt this program to bring you this important message.
Hi, I'm Cathy Thomas, broadcasting from Critical Thinkers Studio. College is not a guarantee to success, but it can most certainly open up many doors for opportunity. And according to a Pew study, college graduates earn $17,500 more annually than their peers that only have a high school diploma. If you are financially able to attend college, by all means do so. For a lot of youngsters, they have scholarships that they can take advantage of, and other people have other means of attending college. But the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society is encouraging many of their young people to forego college for a career as a pioneer. Well, guess what? That is not a career, because when individuals go to work, they are going to work to take care of themselves, to pay their bills, and you cannot pay your bills pioneering. So keep in mind that if you want to go to college, that should be your choice and your choice alone. And remember that a mind is a terrible thing to waste. This has been Cathy Thomas, broadcasting from Critical Thinkers Studio.
Now, back to your scheduled program.
What advice would you give to those listening to this program?
My advice to anybody, especially young women in the organization who might feel like they don't have any options, to take some time out and truly do your research. I mean, Google can become your best friend at the end of the day. If you're not comfortable going to libraries, if you're not comfortable, being in public and asking questions about the organization, Google it. Do whatever you need to do. And if you can spend all this time researching, writing a talk, and you can spend all this time researching, doing a demonstration, you can research outside of those books. And I would encourage anybody to do it, because at that point you'll learn the truth about the truth. And then that's when you really learn who you are. Because it all depends on how you can handle that type of information or not. If you truly want to do what you need to do to feel like a independent human being, do your research and then really see what you're made of after that. Because that's really when you get to learn about the true person inside, who you are and who you were meant to be. I've always said to people that the truth will stand the test of anything. And in the end, and at the end of the day, it always will. And there shouldn't be any fear in finding out the truth.
Amanda, if you were talking to a young person that is in their last few years of high school, what would you tell them?
In this day and age, it is my ideal when it comes to college is that it is now in 2017 and all years moving forward a requirement of anyone that chooses to support themselves or to be independent. You need to have an education, and you need to have a formal education, which society would consider being college educated. So anyone that is curious about that or is in that last year of high school and you're not sure which route you want to take, it's okay to take a year and figure it out. I will never look down on anybody that is not sure, because as a Jehovah's Witness, we're constantly bombarded with all the ultimate fears and the guilt trips of going away to school or going for a 4-year college degree. But if you really want to be independent and you really want to be able to succeed, not just financially, but mentally and emotionally, you need to fill yourself up with knowledge, and knowledge that's going to help you to survive on your own. Your parents won't always be there. All those Jehovah's Witness friends that you hang out with and have sleepovers and study with, at the end of the day, they're going to live their own lives too. So at some point, you're going to have to make a choice, and that choice needs to be about you. And you need to decide how you're going to do that. But the way to start and the starting point should always be an education for all witness youth that are at that turning point right now in life. You should figure out a way to not allow others' opinions to mold you, but your own. Follow your gut and go to school.
How did you find out that this was not the truth?
I learned this wasn't the truth actually through some of the scenarios that took place when I was disfellowshipped, but the turning point for me was the last time I was at my parents' house, because up till that point I was still permitted to visit them and spend time with my family. But my father made a blanket decision that I was no longer welcome in their home unless it was for an emergency. I was no longer to contact them. And on my way out the door, he told me that if I truly believed that this wasn't the truth, that I needed to read the book Crisis of Conscience. And that was the last thing he said to me as I'm walking out of their home for the last time. And that was what I did right away. Literally, I went home, downloaded a copy. I haven't been able to find a copy recently, but for some reason back then I found one right away and downloaded it and read it in maybe 2-3 days straight. I remember calling out of work one day and read like half of it, and the other half I read off and on like throughout my day at work and then that night when I got home, and literally had to take what I called crying breaks throughout reading this book, because I would literally break down after reading things and just have a cry fest. Like I would just cry for straight 10 minutes because it shatters everything that you thought you knew and believed and who you thought you were. It just shatters it. And it was a turning point for me, was that book. Had I read that before, I would have never gotten baptized, to be honest. And to this day, it's like that book like gives me chills just to think of it, because here's somebody who had intimate knowledge of everything in the organization because he made some of it, he created some of it. And to have, I vaguely remember as a child when hearing about that book and how witnesses were not supposed to read it. For some reason, I vaguely remember that. And no one should look at the book. No one should get involved in it. We shouldn't discuss it. He was no longer a witness. And then as an adult to be told to read this book, and now I see why. Now I get why everybody was so scared of it, because that is the truth. Crisis of Conscience is really the truth about the truth.
So before we end this segment, are there any final comments that you would like to conclude with?
In reading Stephen Hassan's book on cults and mind control, that was one of the major points that I've learned is in understanding and recognizing cognitive dissonance, and that what I dealt with and what most Jehovah's Witness youth deal with is just that. So if you're going to do any research as a youngster at this point, I would definitely look up cognitive dissonance so that you understand exactly what it is, exactly what it means, and how you are affected by it. Whether you admit it or not, you're affected by it.
Well, thank you for tuning in to part 1 of Amanda's story. Be sure to be on the lookout for part 2, where she will be discussing her life situation with JT. This has been Lady C. Thank you for tuning in.
This program was sponsored by Critical Thinkers.